Hi, my name is Dan DeSico. This is my 48th summer here. I'm originally from California. Spent time all over the island, and this is my 1970s travel trailer. It's been turned into an actual livable cabin with the cedar and the siding and everything like that. And inside it's retro 1970s. It's been a couple harsh winters. I haven't been able to get here right away. So there is a little rust on things I have to repair. I'm about to redo the floor. So some things are old, some things will be new, but everything is a functioning trailer, so come on in. So we have the main cabin, which I grew up in, but when I became a teenager, a teenager doesn't want to live with mom and dad in the cabin, so I slept in a tent for who knows how long. And then I had a little camper that I stayed in, and when my son was born, that little camper was not going to be enough for us to have our own space. And just as things align sometimes, and they do, this became an option to convince some people to help me move it up here. And then this is basically my second home for the summer. And it was great with my son because he was able to get the Wi-Fi hooked up in here, and they could do kid things. I'm in here for a quick bite to eat for breakfast maybe, and then I'm out all day long, whether it's raining or shining, doing something, either working on the property or out fishing, just hiking or whatever. So mostly it's used for sleeping, and then I like to come in here in the evening and watch a video or two. I remember my parents having a big old motorhome, and it kind of looked like this on the inside, but not quite as brown. I don't know what it is with the early 70s, but brown and oranges are the thing. But everything still works, and that's the hard part, is keeping this stuff alive. Every year I turn on something and I get really quiet because I want to hear for water running or some other scary noise that might be coming from something. One of the concerns with anything from the 70s is their gas plumbing wasn't the best, and so I do have a sensor over there for if I have the gas on. That was the primary concern with something this age, is making sure that it was safe, especially when my son was in here. And no problems. My father and I have built decks on our main cabin, and so throughout the years we just added the deck. The home is pretty permanent now, but it was a float house, and it's floated to 3 different islands before it made it here, and it's gone through 3 generations of people before I got it. And it was slated to be demolished, and I just couldn't have that done. So doing a little Cortez trading, I was able to move it here to its final location, and this has become my home away from home. So right now it's just my lab puppy and me, so you have to forgive the lab stuff everywhere, but it's a 1970s travel trailer inside. The only thing that's going to be updated, the carpet will come out, but the floor and the carpet will have new tile, and we're kind of in that process right now. It's nice to kind of just have a little place. This is big enough for one person and a child to, how every human being likes to have their own space. My son likes this for his own space, and then when friends of the family come up, or my friends, I'll move back to the cabin my parents are in, and then let our friends stay here. They want a little break from people. They come down to their own little haven, and that's probably the biggest benefit of keeping this kind of up and going is friends come up. They love spending time with you, but they love spending time on their own too. There's an open space above us. If I open that up, it's 6 feet up until you get to the peak. Well, it's always a war with squirrels because they somehow find a way in there, and they love to run across it to hide their stuff on one side because they don't want to put their stuff where they get in. And I've never figured it out after all these years. So that used to be the thing of waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning and but I wasn't here for 3 winters because of the border closure, and rats, which I've never had a problem with, found their way in, and I think 1 or 2 found their way in, and then they started multiplying because all my insulation was destroyed. I had to manually go in and pull things out of the wall and take part of the wall out behind a chair just to get all that out. It was pretty disgusting, and that was a shock to see that. So that was probably the biggest challenge. Also, just taking something that was a float house and making it not a float house, because you have to level everything. And it's still an RV. I mean, that's what it is at its heart. If it needs to move tomorrow, I could get it to move. I still have the axles and the wheels, and we can move it if we really needed to. This whole part open up and off we go. And it's better than a tiny home, I guess, because it's its own thing. Well, this folds out into a bed. It's actually really comfortable just to sleep on it like that. I have friends who just don't even bother opening the bed up. The future plan is to put a little stove right here. That way it stays a little warmer. Just like any motorhome today, the table goes down and then you have another bed here and then the primary bed back there. It's got the small kitchen here. 3 winters that kind of rusted a little bit, still working on cleaning that out, but everything is functional. Fridge, freezer. To the right you have a fully functional bathroom, sink, shower, toilet, and a little closet, and then the master suite in back. Well, just like any other thing, I think the coolest thing in here is this retro Craig stereo. And I believe it's on Cortez radio. Still works, which is amazing that the wiring wasn't eaten by mice or rats at some point. That's the hardest part, since I'm not here during the winter, is the critters getting in, so it's a constant battle with them. Oh, I've always known I like my space. The option was I could build a small cabin from scratch, because that's how land works here. You could have a main cabin, but then you have a certain square footage to build a smaller cabin. Well, I could have done that, but this wasn't necessarily easier because I had to be really creative on how to make things stick to the outside walls without entering the inside walls. So it was a lot different than building something from scratch. You know, it could have been easily done. It's just how it worked out at the time, and the history of this going from Hill Island to the bottom of Cortez to over here and then finally to here. So my son would actually be the 4th generation to stay in here. Not related generations, but the 4th generation of people to put their head down in here. I like to keep everything as original as possible because it's just kind of neat. I need to switch all the lights to LED because the little plastic gets hot. And so that's why there's no covers, but it's great living space. You know, I've got all my kitchen utensils here, food, things like that up there. I don't use a lot of the cupboards in the bedroom because you kind of have to go around things, so I just use these for my clothes and whatnot. It's got more space than I could ever use for myself. When friends come, they've got plenty of room in the empty spots to put their clothes, and they have room to hang up their clothes. Not the prettiest because it's still kind of in the middle of being redone with the floor, but you know, 1970s chic, sink, everything you need. 1970s that has somehow survived, and everything is creative engineering in here, especially after it's gone through 3 generations before me. Everybody's had their hands on it, so I get under there and I don't know what this is doing. For instance, the hot water is the cold water is the hot water, and at this point I can't change it because it's all plumbed perfectly to be backwards, so why change it? And then back here we just have standard living space, another door, lots of cupboards and things like that. It gets very dark in here with these, you know, Cortez stays light for forever. It gets very dark. Watch the age. I grew up with a father who blessed me with the knowledge of how to repair things, and you know, everything from plumbing to painting to walls to construction. So it's more of just, oh, look what I have to fix. Okay. We do have one place to get hardware and supplies from, but you can't guarantee you're always going to get what you need, so you have to be pretty darn creative with making something work. A lot of times it's not meant for that, but you need it to make it work. I would say get something newer if you don't have those skills, and if you want it to look pretty, well, you're going to have to be able to do some construction. Everything, it's basically a cabin and then a cabin. The outside's its own cabin and the inside's its own trailer, and so it's just this weird combination of how do we make something look like it's not a 1970s giant trailer sitting there, and that was the outcome. But if somebody's not going to be here full time, you need to have something better for heating. The heating works great, but I wouldn't trust it for a winter. You know, it does get cold and wet here, so my plan is to maybe put a little stove in right in this general area, and then I think it'd be a very fine winter. You'd be just fine with a little stove. The thing about living in a trailer is you can't close it up. If I closed up every window and turned on the heater in here, it would start growing mold. No matter how cold it gets outside, you have to have a window open on both sides, having some cross circulation, a little fan going. Living in a small space, it's a necessity. So if a person moves into something small, they need to have a way to get rid of the humidity and to have air circulating, because the winters are cold, the winters are damp, and without that circulating, you could even have a stove going, but you need to circulate the air. And I think that's probably one of the most important things to learn about living in a small space, is your own body heat is going to cause moisture. And so you need to have, especially when you're sleeping, so you need to have some way to keep that air flowing and keep it going constantly. That way you don't get mold and things like that. Well, fridge could run off of, just like an RV, propane power. So right now it's just hooked up to 110 power. I have a garage / barn that I have another outlet for on a panel. And we just run power to it because I don't want anything running power to it over the winter if I'm not here. A tree could fall on the lines, I'd have to bury them, stuff like that. So it's really easy to just do something quick, just off my panel. Propane stove, and the hot water runs off the propane. But I like to take outdoor showers, so I have a little outdoor shower. And then it's beautiful when it's raining to take an outdoor shower. If you've never done that, you got to give it a try. So when friends come, if their wives want to take a shower, they can. Yeah, I have enough to make my coffee in the morning and any little thing else I need. So for the water, it's all hooked up to the main line, so I don't have to worry about waste. Our septic system is so great that we only use it, 2.5, 3 months out of the year. So in 40 some odd years, it's never actually filled up because it always drains over the winter, and I don't use enough in here. I fill up a glass, I fill up a bowl, but my outdoor shower is where that's primarily why I do that, is it just makes life easier. So I'm an educator. I teach high school and I teach college students. And I don't know if this applies everywhere, but the big push for people is to go get an education, because you got to be a lawyer, you got to be a doctor, something like that. And my advice is, if you like working with your hands, go get an apprenticeship somewhere. Go to a trade school. Go find, I always tell my students, you could be a plumber and in 2 years make $200,000. Hopefully when I retire, which hopefully is sooner rather than later, I'll be here more. And I plan on staying here until I die. So find a place you like, find a place you love, find people you like being with, and go do that. If you want to check me out, go to ratemyprofessor.com. Type in my last name, DECICCO, and College of the Sequoias, and you can learn about me.
Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, please share it with a friend. Also, if you want to watch more alternative dwellings, we got a playlist popping up right here, and we release new episodes every single Sunday, so consider subscribing.